The characters, you could not really call them three-dimensional. I mean, they were pretty much cardboard cutouts. The script was terrible. The dialogue was awful.
You're really selling this movie to me, Terry.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 518 of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Terry Mixon. Joining me, Paul E. Coulee!
I wasn't aware the World Cup was still going on.
I thought that was like a WrestleMania thing.
Oh, well, you didn't quite get it right.
Let's hear it then. Give me some WrestleMania.
I'm not going to give you WrestleMania.
Oh, come on.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
And in this corner, weighing in at 500,000 words, Paul the Lord Book Coulee.
Dear listeners, if you can understand a goddamn word Terry just said, please leave it in the comments. Because fortunately for me, I'm half deaf, not wearing my hearing aids, but I saw just how far the meter went. So now I have to apply a filter to calm his ass down so he doesn't blow your eardrums out. This is the kind of shit he does to me. He doesn't realize the kinds of effects it has.
Oh, I feel bad.
You should. You should feel very bad. Anyway, Terry, I'm here.
It's NaNoWriMo, man.
It's NaNoWriMo.
NaNoWriMo. I want to see that abbreviation.
Oh, God, let's not. So
what are you doing for NaNoWriMo?
We're recording today. We're recording early because you're going to be in Vegas next week.
Right.
So today was November 1st when we were recording this, and I had a great day, 3,200 words on static.
Considering you need to have at least a minimum of 1,667, you are on course, my man.
Yeah, I'm on course. So we'll see. Hopefully I'll get some more done on that tonight, but I really have got to get back to Evolution and start banging out more edits. But I was jonesing last night. It was like 11 p.m. I was like, I kind of want to work on static. Now I'll go to bed. I'm glad it did, actually. Had a lot better ideas this morning.
Sleep is good, you know. You got to have that sleep if you want to keep writing.
Yeah, sleep was actually good. So I already have identified other characters and everything else and have a general feel where things are going and discovered a whole shitload of things about this character.
Yay!
So, now, one thing that annoys me, I want the NaNoWriMo to go ahead and put the book in. Okay. I haven't shared my username with anybody, but I will eventually. They wanted me to put a cover for the book.
Stupid.
That made no sense to me. Can somebody out? What do you think their plan is there? And I've seen several people put up new book covers. You know, they just had them created for their NaNoWriMo project. I'm confused. What am I missing?
I don't even know the title of my book until I'm at least 3/4 of the way through it.
Ah, see, that's what's interesting between you and I. I usually have the title before I have the damn story. If that makes any sense at all.
Well, it's great if you could do it, but my stories are so off into Never Neverland occasionally that I don't know how it's going to end, so I'm not sure exactly what the title should be until I have a good feeling of the ending. Otherwise, that's how you get things like Raid on Terra, or Journey from Terra, or We're Not Fucking Getting to Terra.
Yeah, it's a good thing you write the kinds of things you write. You would never, ever be able to write certain types of fiction if you keep doing that. It just won't happen.
That plot went so far off the rails that, yeah, the plot changed every couple of weeks. I'm like, that's not happening.
Well, I still have the underlying conceit for the book. So as long as I keep chasing that, finding where to put it in, because it's coming. I can already feel we're going to start introducing that in the first 5,000 words, but not going to say anything else about it, really. Just going to be one of these weird deals. And then the point is going to be to keep having that happen in different situations, and then have the character and the readers kind of start to put it together. I don't know how long it's going to take to get to that.
Even in a short story, I don't exactly know how things are going to turn out. The one that I just finished, I anticipated the assassins trying to take out Princess Kelsey in what amounts to a ski chalet. And by the end of the book, they were on the mountainside, on the other side of the mountain from the chalet, and no one inside knew what was going on. So at the beginning, I had no idea that's where the story was going. But as I went along, I was like, oh, yeah, there's this element that I should add in. Oh, there's this thing I should do. Oh, the character should do this. How the fuck did I end up on the other side of this mountain? That's how I did.
That's how you write everything.
That is how I write everything, which is why I can't settle on a title for a novel, because I already know that when I start writing it, by the halfway point, it's going to have totally changed what I thought it was going to do.
At least now we have a better understanding of your writing process or lack thereof.
I have a process.
Yes.
I write whatever the fuck I want, and the book ends up where I finally think that I can put stop on it.
Yeah, we're about as far apart as we can get on that particular line of things.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
writers have their own creative purpose, their own creative ways of doing things. For me, writing is just like reading. I start reading a book that I haven't read before, and I'm like, oh, these characters, oh, they're doing these things. Oh, what? This would be cool if it happens here. Oh, what if this? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, where the fuck am I going? Where the hell is this ending up? That's how I write.
Again, more clarification. Basically, what Terry's trying to tell you is his literary ADD.
Squirrel.
There we go.
With occasional bouts of, ooh, donuts.
And, ooh, shiny.
Yeah, exactly.
Must have the new shiny. There's a new idea. Must chase it. Must chase it in this book that I'm writing right now, rather than peeling that off and make it into its own story, which would make more sense. I'm just going to go ahead and follow this and let it carry me wherever the fuck it goes.
If I see shiny, I'm after it.
Oh my God. Never survive. Never survive.
And yet here I am. I've got like 15 novels to my credit.
In one of my books,
somehow work.
In one of my books, a character like you would never survive.
I'm sure I would, because I'd be in the middle of the monster thing and spot something interesting off to the side and be gone. Where has anybody seen Terry? Where the fuck did Terry go? Meanwhile, there he is over here doing God only knows what.
Yes. If they ever make a movie of her life, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be just loads of shiny.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's very sad. It's very sad.
It is glorious.
Don't let him lie to you. Don't let him do that. So what's today's topic, Bubba?
Today's topic are bridges, bridge novels, bridge scenes, bridge characters, even ways to get from point A to point C without falling off a cliff.
Without going a bridge too far.
Or a bridge over River Kwai.
I just can't bridge the gap between us, Terry.
Captain to bridge.
Wish I knew how to quit you. All right, let's get into it.
Let's do it. So tell me, we've been talking for a while about talking. We've been discussing the concept of bridge books, bridge scenes, bridge characters, bridge everything for a couple of months, threatening to do an episode over it. What do you think about bridges? Let's hear what you really think about the two towers.
I usually nuke them from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. Like when I leave a company, I usually, salt the earth.
We're totally done there then. We finished this. Goodbye, everybody.
Bridge stories, bridge novels, bridge characters. I guess we're going to cover all that today.
Sure.
Bridges are, if you don't, I'll give the definition first. A bridge book is a book that's supposed to basically be the swampy middle. It is the swampy middle for all intents and purposes. And the reason why it is all in the swampy middle is because there's all this setup that has to happen for the third act. And it's too much to go in the first act. You have to break it up. And that's usually why bridge novels are there, is because the first book sets up all this stuff up as much as it can. The second book sets up even more, and we start to see the first of the dominoes fall. And then you've got the third book where It's all the crazy. Everything's falling from the sky.
Unless you're J.R.R. Tolkien and you write these monolithic books that, when does the action start again? I keep forgetting.
I'm not going to play in this.
I like them. I was actually taunting you.
Yeah, I know you are. I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to take the bait. I'm older and smarter. Well, maybe older. It's bridge books are tough because while they may be necessary, they have a penchant to bog down. They have a penchant to bog down, get wrapped up in minutiae. And I think with people who are avid world builders, this is where you can really get yourself in trouble. And I think that's why I try and avoid them at all costs. But I had to write one for Derelict. So that was really my first bridge book, if you will. And I guess in a way, Evolution is a bridge book too, because I'm setting stuff up for what's going to happen in the next book. And this is the only reason why this book exists. Really.
Then yeah, it's a bridge book.
So it was fun, but it took me a long time to get the feel of where I wanted to go. And I was worried it was too boring. I'm reading it now because I'm editing it, and I don't think it's too boring upon rereading it. Tomb was really difficult because I had to keep these folks in the goddamn ship and find more stuff for them to do. And I had to keep leading. The only way for me to show this off was to have more chases, have more of this, that, and the other, and funnel them to where I had to go. It's difficult to make that work if you've got another set of characters, because you have to find things for them to do. So you don't just leave them hanging out there with, to dry. You've got to keep them in the story. At least that was my choice. So Tomb was a real pain in the ass to write. It's one of the reasons why it took so damn long. But Evolution was a bridge book where I shortened the number of characters that I was hanging on to. I've only got 2 POVs in that book. And that's that. There's no more POVs. I don't have to juggle. I don't have to do any of that garbage. I don't have to find something for everybody to do or account for their whereabouts at all times. I don't have to worry about it. If I did, this thing would not be 90,000 words or 99, whatever it is right now. It would be like 250 if I kept all those characters. And so that's too much for a bridge book. It's too much for me to handle. I don't want to write that.
Please send a note to David Weber about that.
And bridge books are usually when you have those meetings, the endless meetings and everything else, figuring out what the hell's going on.
Well, then Honor Harrington is a bridge series. I'm not sure where it's going from or to, but there you are.
Well, like I said, I think there's a danger of bridge books just kind of meandering on way too long. And of course, some of us are still stupid. We'll put new plot lines into bridge books because we're idiots. Because we're just idiots.
Because we're gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, because we're gluttons for punishment. But at the same time, there are things that you will find that you need to add to that to also set up other things in the third book or fourth, fifth book, whatever it is you're doing, whatever the order is.
Whatever the climactic book is going to be.
Whatever the next book that actually solves that arc is. And basically, bridge book is the middle of the arc.
I know that I got myself stuck when I was writing the Terra Gambit. Changed titles like four times because I kept having high hopes that I would actually get to the conclusion, and then realized that I'd kept adding things to the point to where I wasn't getting anywhere.
This is self-sabotage, man.
Yeah, there's a lesson to be learned there. We learn from our mistakes. And another mistake was separating my main characters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to be getting them back together in the next Empire book, I believe. So that means I'm going to have to write 2 point of views in one set of people and 2 point of views in the widely disseparate point of view group, and then start herding them together to get them to where they need to be.
So are you considering that a bridge of sorts to get them back?
I suppose it is.
So you're choking off an arc is what you're doing, or choking off a miniature arc within the larger arc.
I'm not sure that I would say that it's a smaller arc, because what I have in mind for the climax of that particular novel is going to require all the characters and the people that are with them. So while they may be in geographically dissimilar locations, their journey to get where they need to go has to combine at the end for them to be able to deal with what I'm going to throw at them.
Okay. So it's not a bridge arc that you're writing, but it is a bridge arc that you're writing.
It's a bridge novel, perhaps, in that I am closing off the separation of the characters, but it's not a bridge plot.
Okay.
It's like Tom Clancy writing with characters scattered all around the globe, but the overall arc heads to one place, one final confrontation.
So you're leading everybody there.
I'm dragging everybody to, well, the big fight, the mini boss, we shall say.
The mini boss. And that right there is the extent of Terry's gamer knowledge.
I read lit RPG. I know more than that.
Not much.
I even know what a tank is.
Oh, tanks are easy, man. Big, burly, bullet catcher. Yeah. My favorite bridge story is The Empire Strikes Back. And I think it's the best, most compelling, dramatic story of the three. And that's why it's my favorite. But it is a bridge movie. It is absolutely a bridge movie. Because it basically sets everything up for the third film in the original trilogy. So that's one of those instances where normally bridge books are not everybody's favorite book, but that's a point where the bridge story is my favorite story of the series. So if you start thinking about bridge books in those terms, then you kind of get a different flavor of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Your thoughts?
No, I agree. I think that is one of the better bridge stories. It's done better than so many others that try to pretend that they're not bridge novels.
What books can you think of that failed as bridges? I mean, besides Two Towers.
Well, that series drags itself out, so it's hard to call anything. It's like it's all a bridge getting where it wants to go.
It's all a bridge between.
Somebody got lost in their setting.
It's all a bridge between Hobbit Town and Mordor.
A funny thing happened on the way to Mordor.
Yeah, a funny thing happened on the way to Mordor. That's the musical Terry and I are writing.
Oh gosh, there have been other ones, but none of them leap to mind because they're forgettable. They're just terribly forgettable. They're not very exciting.
And I think that's the problem is they do get forgettable. In the Harry Potter series, the Order of the Phoenix was sort of a bridge book and sort of not a bridge book. It was the end of any kind of teenage naivete. It was the death of it. But I like that book, but it was definitely a bridge book because it changed everything and set up the last 2 or 3 books. So it's basically the linchpin of the series. It's the first book in the movement from being a kid to being an adult, or growing up and being more self-aware. And it for me, it was kind of like the turning point also in the war against Voldemort. So I consider it a bridge book, a good bridge book, but it's still a bridge. So I don't think bridges are bad. I think you have to have them, but you do need to do some work. They may take a little bit extra effort to make them interesting.
I think that you can get a much more interesting bridge story out of this if you instead make it one of these little rope bridges over the chasm and make it a little dangerous, a little wobbly.
Exactly. I like it when the bridge is falling apart. And one explosion was enough to knock everybody off it and kill everyone. That's in the kind of stories that we write, that is the perfect way to describe it. You are leading them from one thing to another over a chasm and make that chasm deep. You can still, even though it's the bridge, you can still make the stakes high, and that will help propel everything forward.
Have some of those boards break.
Yeah, have the boards break. Have a rope snap. Have them hanging on for dear life.
That would be exciting.
Yeah. So, and then you get to the other side, and guess what? We rest up, and then we go fight the big final battle, whatever it might be. So, yeah, that's essentially what the bridge is there for, in my mind. And it works the same way with short stories. You might have to have a section that is a bridge.
How do you know if you need a bridge?
When you can't get from A to C.
When you can't get from A to C except over a tortuously long and convoluted little path?
It doesn't have to be convoluted. It just means you have to find a way to make the jump between the two things that you're doing.
But shouldn't you cut out all the boring parts? Shouldn't you only be writing the exciting parts? Why do we need a bridge story, bridge novel, bridge plot? If it's going to be that boring, why do we even need it? Shouldn't we just be saying, and time passes, and here we go?
Yeah, that's a problem, because otherwise what you're dealing with is you're dealing with in the third act. If you skip the second act altogether and go directly to the third act, you're missing context of everything that has happened before that to set up whatever you needed for the final book, final part of the story.
Well, I asked that question that way because there are plenty of books that get through the second act just fine. I think that when you really, the way you run into a bridge novel is when you've ran out of time in the first act, when you went long on the first act, and suddenly you can't really fit the middle into the same novel. You've got to cut it apart and put it as a separate entity.
Welcome to Derelict.
And then your middle kind of mushes on along and it's hard to get rolling. And then suddenly you're at the end of that book and you're set up for the next one. I think that's really how bridge stories and novels occur is you're not focused. We're not focused enough.
Well, for me with Marines, I just needed to stop. I was where I needed to go for that period. I knew I'd have to write Tomb. I foolishly thought I could actually get everything done in Tomb. There was no freaking way. Obviously, since Destruction was 130,000 words, and I feel is actually kind of short in places. So, yeah, that would have been a 200. Well, no, yeah, it would have been 300,000 words before it was over with. So I just couldn't do it. With the Black, same kind of deal. I need this book there to explain and give a preview of what's coming in book 5. Otherwise, book 5 will make no goddamn sense. So,
meanwhile, what happened before?
Yeah, you can't. It just, you could do that, but why?
Well, I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying some people do that.
Yeah, they do. There are books that do that. There are stories that do that. There are authors that are perfectly fine with that. And there are readers that are perfectly fine with it. I don't like it. As a reader, as a writer, I don't like doing it that way. So the bridge has to be there. I needed the bridge. And the bridge was actually fun to write once I did what I did, which was simplify it. So, and a bridge novel only needs to be 70 to 90,000 words. It doesn't need to be some great, huge, scoped out thing.
David Weber, are you listening?
Well, says Cooley, who, wrote Tomb, which was a bridge novel, and it weighed in at like 102. So, yeah. I think you just have to look at the story and see if you can get there from here. And sometimes you can't without creating something else in between. So it just depends on the story, what you're writing. In a series, it's usually between arcs. Like Dresden, when he becomes a ghost, that's kind of a different animal, but it's there to relate other details.
And now here we are waiting for peace talks.
Now here we are waiting for peace talks. Funny how that happens. And the other way you can tell it's a bridge novel is that whatever is addressed in that bridge novel does not carry on sometimes. I'm trying to think of other bridge novels or movies to go along with that. Star Wars and Two Towers are the ones that, or Empire Strikes Back and Two Towers are the ones that immediately leap to mind, but I don't really have any other examples.
The problem is that unless it's done well, it's very forgettable. It's something you just skip right on past. You're like, it was necessary. I had to walk this path to get here, but now I can forget it.
Well, television seasons, sometimes you feel like there's a season, maybe it's between 1 and 3 or 3 and 5, that is a throwaway season. It's like they're just setting stuff up. They're going through the motions because they've got something else planned, but they need all these other things to happen. And those seasons become throwaway. I don't remember them either. It's kind of like, my favorite season of this TV show is these. It's because they were more focused, maybe. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of hard to
It's
spot.
almost more likely in the middle of like a television series that you'll have bridge episodes
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
opposed to in entire seasons. That's much more likely. And there are definitely every series that you have there has filler episodes that expand some smaller minor thing about the character but don't really advance the larger plot.
And sometimes what's addressed in those scenes is actually important to the plot later.
Occasionally, sometimes it's utterly meaningless.
Sometimes it's utterly meaningless. There is an episode in Buffy the Vampire Slayer called the Zeppo, and it's where Xander gets described as the uh, fourth Marx brother. In other words, he's just kind of hanging out, doing his thing, doesn't really add anything, as kind of a joke. During that episode, he goes through the weirdest night of his life where he actually saves everybody in Sunnydale like multiple times and nobody knows about it.
That's
Nobody knows
amusing.
about it. Yeah. And he gets cut off from this other conflict that's alluded to that we never really see and everything else. It's just he keeps running into things. It is a fun episode, but it's also a great episode because we get to ride along with the character with all his neuroses and watch him fight them off. And at the end, he's a much stronger person for it. And we know that. We know that steel is there. And that's all that episode is there for, because it doesn't advance any other thing that's going on in that season. It's really just about finding new and interesting ways to have Xander have a bad night and have it mean something.
I can't remember what the series is. And I think it was a book series. It may have, I can't even really say that for sure. But the character that I'm thinking of is just a total fuck up in this series, whatever it is. And during one episode, he gets cut off from everybody else and basically lives an eternity and shows up fighting to save the characters from this little time bubble they've gotten themselves stuck in, repeating time. He's the only one that sees that time is repeating. So he's growing smarter with each iteration, growing a backbone with each iteration. And he comes out at the tail end of this episode and basically becomes like the uber ninja to fight and save their lives, knowing that it's going to cut off the time bubble and he is going to vanish. What he has become will be gone forever.
Mm.
And at the end of the episode, you're back to he's the fuck up.
Interesting.
That was interesting for that character, but I honestly can't remember what it is anymore.
Didn't Star Trek do that with Guinan, where there was a deal where the Romulans and the Klingons had made peace and they were fighting the Federation in a big war?
I suppose they might have. I don't remember it.
God.
This was definitely a time. It was a Groundhog Day sort of thing.
Yeah, that sounds like Groundhog Day. Yeah, I think the X-Files did one of those too. Something like that, where he kept dying in the bank over and over again. I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, Groundhog Day. We watched that the other night. I still think that is a great movie. Absolutely hilarious. I don't understand why some people don't like it. I love that flick. Watching that character go through what he goes through. To stop being an asshole.
I keep meaning to watch What About Bob?
Oh God. That movie on the other hand.
Watch him get saner while his psychiatrist goes nuts.
While he drives his psychiatrist nuts, yeah. Good stuff. Not really. Groundhog Day, much better, much superior product.
All right. All right.
My personal opinion.
So, bridge stories. Do you ever have any bridge short stories?
No, because I really haven't written enough short stories in this stage of my career for it to really matter, for me to come across those. Although, actually, I guess sort of I have with Legends of Garaga when I wrote the Interloper story. That's merely there to show the book being moved and for certain things to get recorded. It's a good story. I like that one a lot, but I guess really in essence, it is a bridge story. And so is Interlopers and Scribes are both are both bridge stories, I guess. Because we never see the characters again, we never hear about them again. They never matter in the rest of the larger work, which ends up being in scrolls. So, yeah, I guess I have.
I haven't written enough short stories with the same people to get into having to have a bridge between them.
The bridge can also be time-based with a character who's not series, but is actually connected to the series, even if they never do a repeat. I mean, if you're telling a story with or writing a collection of short stories, for instance, where maybe the events are related, not necessarily the characters, then you have that progression as it moves along. If I'm writing a story in a series, if I'm writing a story where I want to show the contents of a suitcase moved around, for instance, before it gets to the person it's intended for, because I need this person to get this information in this story because it affects another story or something like that. You're writing all these little bridge scenes showing the suitcase moving around because that's how the story is put together. But those bridge scenes can be extremely interesting because you're watching people interact with something. And I think the reader and the audience is going to be interested in what these people are doing with this, while it's moving around. And there are some stories like that where you see an object or something important get shuffled around between people and it impacts their lives as going through it. So that the Pulp Fiction, for instance, you've got the suitcase with whatever the hell is glowing in there that keeps showing up in all these little different vignettes and gets pushed along. And we still don't know, even at the end of the movie, we still don't know what the hell was in there. Could have been a human soul. I have no idea. But we don't need to know. It is what it is. The contents don't matter. All we know is that people want it. But it's important that this thing move around and that everybody's looking for it.
It can be a great distraction. Watch this hand.
Yeah, it's the hand wavium thing. Look at this spectacle over here. Meanwhile, the real work is going on beneath the covers. A false flag operation with a suitcase. Whoa. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're a lot of help. This was your topic, and you're not contributing much.
I am contributing. I'm peppering you with questions because I'm so ill-advised, and uneducated when it comes to bridges.
Whatever. Whatever.
I do try to avoid them as much as I can. So I try not to commit bridge.
I don't want to commit bridge again. I know at some point I will have to, though. It will happen again. It will happen again.
Another thing that you can use a bridge novel for, think about two parallel lines running. If you have to get from one to the other, you need a bridge across it from one path to the other.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's usually some kind of crazy cloverleaf thing with plenty of turns and twists and yada yada before it gets over to the other track.
Or like the entire run of Star Trek Voyager.
Okay, explain.
Well, they took a starship out of the Federation and threw it across the universe and had seasons of them trying to get back home. So basically, the entire series felt kind of bridgy, like you're stuck between being thrown away and getting home.
Yeah, but isn't that Quantum Leap? It's the same kind of thing.
It's like also, God, it wasn't Loopers. It was something like that, though. It's where the four people had to jump into wormholes and go from reality to reality.
Yeah.
God.
I can't
It's
remember.
not Loopers. It's
Sliders.
Sliders. It's like Sliders. You're always moving. Everything is a moving target. You don't know what you're going to run into next. I guess I'm not exactly a fan of that type of thing either. There's no certainty to the story.
Okay, when you say certainty of the story, how do you mean?
You never know what your setting is going to be.
That's a bad thing?
I think it is. For me, personally. I'm not saying it's bad for everyone.
Isn't Stargate kind of the same way, though? I mean, you've got a home base, but they're always popping through there and going someplace.
Yes, but they actually managed to get back. Sliders, from week to week, they're never getting home.
Same thing with Lost in Space.
Yeah, but they spend a long periods of time stuck in one place. Sliders is completely
Yeah.
unconnected to a setting. Every week the setting changes.
Same thing with Quantum Leap.
Perhaps a lot. I was never a fan of Quantum Leap either, so
Interesting.
there you go.
How dare you not be a fan of Quantum Leap? What's wrong with you? Scott Bakula's the bomb.
If he was the bomb, then NCIS New Orleans would actually be a successful television show.
Ooh, wow.
That's harsh, right?
That is harsh. I wouldn't know. I've never watched it. So
we watched the first season and went, meh.
Meh.
We don't watch the Los Angeles spinoff, and we don't watch the New Orleans spinoff.
I've never watched any of them.
The main NCIS is a great show.
I'll take your word for it.
You should take my word for it.
I don't have a lot of interest in it.
It's because you have no time. You're so introspective.
Introspective? Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'm just thinking about more things than bullets and boobs, unlike you.
I'm not quite sure how we got to bullets and boobs.
Military sci-fi stereotypes.
Made a quantum leap right there.
So how do you avoid bridge novels? How do you avoid them?
I think for me, figuring out early on in the story where it needs to go and not letting myself wander around so much that I get caught standing up when the music stops and can't get to a chair, to mix metaphors.
I think Terry just committed outline.
I don't think so, because I'm never really settled on the exact end. But if I say, okay, the end of this novel is going to be their arrival at Terra and what happens there. And by the halfway point, I suddenly realized that my course changes have taken me to the point to where it's going to take me another 100,000 words to get to Terra. I've committed meandering.
I've committed bridge.
I've committed bridge at that point. It was either scrap the novel and start over or just bite the bullet and make a bridge.
And that's where the fun begins. I think the avoiding it may be sometimes impossible for pantsers because we're stupid.
Don't hold back now. Tell us what you really think.
No, I mean, it's a wonderful stupid, but at the same time, these are the kinds of issues that you run into with pantsers. And
definitely a lot more prone to it than outliners.
Yeah, I think it's also a matter of discipline, but we all have those moments where we're like, oh, that's a great new shiny idea I can play with. Let me write that, but oh, frack, that's going to screw up everything. You know, you have I've had those moments, and it's like, you know, I hear Bugs Bunny in my head going, if I do it, I get a whooping. You know, I hear that, and I'm like, I do it. And that's how you end up with Tomb. That's how you end up with Derelict. You have to kind of decide just how much that idea is worth. If it's the idea that's going to cause the bridge.
Sometimes the journey of the character, even if the plot is a bridge, may not be a bridge. It's kind of weird, but you can separate the two.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it always works, but you can sure try.
Yeah, I'm not going to say people shouldn't write them because I know they're necessary in some cases. It's just the avoidance strategy is really difficult if you don't know where the end is. If you're trying for an end and you can't find it, then yeah, you may have an issue.
So bridge novels are a way of saying nice doggy while you hunt for a big stick. You know, beating the dog off.
Oh, beating the dog off.
Because
gotcha.
God, who said that? That was said about diplomacy. Diplomacy is the art of saying nice doggy while hunting for a big stick.
Ah, I got you.
Something, some historical figure I can't remember right now.
Good doggy. Yeah,
pretty much exactly. But your analogy works fine too.
It's one of those issues where if you pay attention to it, you'll find a way to handle it. Don't panic. Don't panic. I panic.
Never panic.
Don't panic.
Bad.
Panic bad. Panic will cause the book, 8 or 9 months to get done. You when I look at the bridge books that I've done thus far, I'm happy with them. They are swampy middles, but they're necessary to get where I want to end up going. And I would have had to write them regardless. So it's really just a question of, in my case, do I try and stuff all this into one book or do I break it up? And with Black, it would make no sense for it to be one contiguous book. No sense at all. So that's why I'm doing it the way I did it, as opposed to Derelict, where, yeah, a book was too big to slice up between the two either. So that's where I got stuck. That's why the bridge exists. I'm hopeful I can avoid bridges in the future, but I have a feeling that I will find them again. But maybe I can, if I know it's going to be a bridge from the outset, then I'll be in better shape.
How can you plan for a bridge?
That's a really good question. I think when you come to the last third of the book that you're writing or in the series or whatever else it is, and you realize that you're just not going to be able to tie everything up. And maybe you've got a sequel following this. You know, in the strain, it takes 2 books to tell the first arc, and then the third book is its own arc. So the second book could be seen as a bridge to that third because it sets it all up. Or you can say that the 2 should have been one, which you can make that argument.
You can also say that if what's going to happen between book 1 and book 3, if book 3 is not what the readers are going to be expecting, if you know it's going to be a huge curveball at them, you may need something to give them the space to become accustomed to the change.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
So we're absolutely not saying that you should avoid them unless you're not planning for them, in which case maybe you should avoid them then. But then it's a little late.
The meanwhile or last time or, trying to cover up, years or centuries of data with just 3 paragraphs is going to really piss some people off. So having a story there to set all that up, I think, is a better way to go. I would commit bridge in that case, rather than try and just have a massive time jump where I don't have to sort anything out. But again, depends on the kind of book you're writing. But then again, if you're writing Stephen King's it's one single book. So there's no bridge novel necessary, even though there are bridge anecdotes in it. I would go for it, I would say. But, it is what it is. You write pretty linear. I write pretty linear for the most part. So occasionally we're going to need a bridge. You just cannot do it any other way because we're focusing on one arc at a time. Trying to, anyway. And if you're trying to do that, then yes, occasionally you will have to find a way to make that leap to the next crazy idea you have for the next book in the series or the next arc in the series. And bridge books can be where everybody rests for a minute before they start between, the last adventure they had and going off in the next one. Give them a mini adventure. Let them go through passport control. Let them get to the other side and let them
side quest.
Yeah, side quest. And then next book, let them get back to the main quest. It's a good way of looking at it. It is a side quest, very long one.
Throwing myself back to the story that I was trying to tell earlier, I still don't remember which show it was from, but the characters were stuck in a time loop where only one of them had a memory of the loop itself. And he was trying to talk the other characters through, saying, no, take me seriously. I know what's going to happen next. If you do this one thing, you're going to die. And trying to lead them through, having to convince them every single time that he was not a fuck up anymore, that he had grown, that he wasn't a fuck up. And finally getting to the end of it and having to basically short circuit the last trap with his own body and kill himself. And then everyone's outside the time loop and his character has no memory of any of the years and centuries spent inside that loop.
But the other characters do remember him as he was.
They remember that he said those things. They remember the very last iteration.
Right. The fully formed iteration.
The fully formed iteration where he sacrificed himself for them. but he has no memory of it.
So in other words, their relationship with him has changed permanently, but he has no idea or doesn't remember why.
Pretty much.
That's actually a good way to doing things.
It was an interesting show, and even though I can't remember, it had to have been a television show. I can't remember which series it was, but it struck me, obviously, to the point to where the plot of it stuck with me.
I like that idea, though. I like that idea. Because it does grow the character. It also grows the other characters and leaves them room to display new affection or emotions toward a character who has been through that, even though that character doesn't remember anything. I like that.
And I think what spawned it is you were talking about Buffy and the character having, you know, his moment in the sun there, doing all this. This character, whoever it was pretty much like that. He was not to be taken seriously.
Yeah. If somebody was just standing on the periphery.
Mm-hmm.
I think those kind of stories are great. I would love to see a story with just the coroner from Dresden. I would love to see a story just with him.
I think that would be fun.
What's his name?
I can't remember his name.
Damn it.
You're not talking.
Butters.
We need to go ahead and bring this to a close, Paul, because, well, I was late getting here and you've got dinner to eat.
Mm-hmm. And videos to edit. So, folks, if you want to send us a email to tell us what bridge we missed, you know, if we need to go a bridge over the River Kwai and we missed off on that. Bridge too far.
if we do that, send us a note at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can find Paul on Twitter at Paul_E_Cooley. Better yet, find us on Facebook at the Listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook group. That's where all the cool kids hang out. That's where we talk about everything under the sun. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. If you would like to support us with as little as $1 a month and get exclusive content, you can go to patreon.com/DRS podcast and show your love to us that way, because it helps keep this show on the air. And of course, we have to thank the good folks at podhoster.com who host all the audio for your ear holes. Paul, who are our $10 patrons?
And this week's $10 patrons are Sue Babin, J.D. Barker, Nathan serving guarantees citizenship, want to know more petty. God, I'm stumbling today. Kelson Deal, the 33 thieves thought that they thrilled the throne through. Got that one last time. Isabel Cushy, Rick, looking for resolution in Tunguska Shaw. Man, someday you're going to have to explain these things. Lisa Slack, Sandy Manpants, Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Drew Ludicrous Speed Bernardi, Chris Winder, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Handley.
He's gone plaid. Well, folks, thanks for being with us, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, Paul, we talked about subplots.
Try again and get the camera on you first.